The grandeur of Rome, once a beacon of civilization, culture, and military might, begs the question, how did this colossal empire, which dominated much of Europe, North Africa, and parts of Asia, fall into ruin? It's a topic that has fascinated historians, scholars, and the curious minds of millions for centuries. Imagine standing in the heart of the Roman Forum, surrounded by ancient ruins, the crumbled marbles whispering tales of glory and power. You might be wondering what could possibly lead to the decline of such an empire, one that seemed invincible at its zenith. In the next few minutes, we will unpack the intricate tapestry of events and decisions, societal transformations, and existential threats that led to the eventual demise of Rome, ensuring that by the end, you'll have a profound understanding of one of history's most staggering transformations. The narrative of the Roman Empire's fall is neither swift nor simple, it's a complex saga woven from multifaceted threads. So, grab your thinking cap. Prepare for a journey filled with surprising revelations and unexpected twists as we traverse through the eras that transformed a mighty empire into a shadow of its former self. One of the first steps in grasping the fall of such a great civilization involves recognizing the sheer scale of Rome's expansion. At its peak in the 2nd century AD, Rome was home to approximately 50 to 90 million people, about 20% of the world's population at the time. The empire stretched over 3 continents, encompassing diverse cultures, languages, and ecosystems. With this vast territory came immense challenges, and many of these difficulties stemmed from the very nature of the empire's expanse. The question lingers, how can one effectively govern such a wide-ranging collection of peoples? As we delve deeper, let's consider a phenomenon that would significantly impact Roman society: the rise of military challenges. The Roman legions, once regarded as the most formidable fighting force in the world, began to encounter substantial pressure on their borders, from the Sassanid Persians in the east to Germanic tribes in the north. However, many scholars argue that the seeds of this military strain were rooted deeper in Rome's political fabric. You see, the empire's expanding territory necessitated an increasingly organized military structure, but as Rome stretched its borders, governance and supply became a logistical nightmare, leading to overstretched resources. What comes next may surprise you. The era we now refer to as the crisis of the 3rd century saw the empire nearly collapse under the weight of invasion, civil war, plummeting economy, and plague. It would be easy to pinpoint the external threats to Rome as the leading cause for its decline. However, just as much as external enemies loomed, internal strife was brewing. This era marked a significant rise in the number of emperors, many of whom were proclaimed by their legions, leading to chaos and instability. Imagine being a Roman citizen during this tumultuous time, where the ruler could change overnight, as legions challenged and betrayed emperors like pawns on a chessboard. The loyalty of soldiers shifted rapidly, driven by financial incentives and the promise of power. This political instability culminated in a staggering 26 emperors in just over 50 years. Each new ruler ushered in a wave of fear and uncertainty, triggering conflict within the empire, a cycle that only intensified the degradation of civic trust and unity. You might be asking yourself, what role did economics play in this grand narrative of decline? The answer, a crucial one. As agriculture became less prosperous due to a series of poor harvests and climate changes, economic reliance on local supplies stretched resources thin. The empire slowly transitioned into a world where trade became challenging, heavily influencing urban centers that heavily depended on imported goods. Imagine how disheartening it must have been for Roman citizens to witness their towns, which once bustled with goods and opportunities, turning into mere remnants of civilization. Additionally, let's not overlook the complications wrought by coinage inflation. With the need to fund constant military campaigns and appease citizens amid crisis, emperors began debasing currency, leading to rampant inflation. You may be surprised to learn that by the end of the 3rd century, the coinage that passed through the empire had reduced in silver content to almost nothing. The economy, once the bedrock of wealth and stability, now faced crippling devaluation. But it's not just economics and military concerns that undermine the Roman Republic. The social fabric of their society began fraying. As wealth became concentrated in the hands of a few elite families, a growing divide emerged between the rich and the poor. Here, we find the roots of social unrest, as discontent among the masses simmered, a ticking time bomb ready to explode. As political figures chased power, they increasingly relied on populism and the promise of bread and circuses, a desperate attempt to placate the masses. And what about the Roman populace? What was happening to the heart and soul of Rome? It's critical to recognize that while politics and economics ushered in change, all eyes were not solely on the emperors or military generals. The people of Rome themselves were changing. As the empire expanded, so did the diversity of its inhabitants. From the Britons to the Egyptians, the newly arrived peoples brought different customs and beliefs into the fold. You may not expect it, but changes in faith played a significant role in this transformation. As Christianity began to spread through the empire, it stood in stark contrast to traditional Roman beliefs centered around polytheism. The state religion was tied closely to the empire's identity. No longer was Rome merely a city controlled by men, it had become a sacred entity. The rise of Christianity, as it gained acceptance, challenged the existing order. By questioning the divine authority of the emperor and espousing the ideals of humility and communal care, this new faith began to alter the cultural landscape. As the centuries progressed, the conflict between these belief systems created considerable tension, and you may be surprised to learn that by the end of the 4th century, Christianity was not only legitimized, but became the state religion. Imagine the impact of such a change on a civilization that had worshipped a pantheon of gods for over a millennium. The fall of the Roman pantheon was not merely a shift in faith, it represented a catalyst for transformation throughout the empire's societal structure. Conversely, this shift didn't come without fallout. The Christian Church, now entwined with imperial power, began to wield influence that altered the status quo. Hierarchies formed that sought power and control over both the people and the emperor, leading to further fractures in the unity of the empire. Perhaps you've already begun to connect the dots: external invasions, rampant inflation, political instability, and the upheaval of traditional beliefs. We're only scratching the surface of how intertwined these elements were in contributing to the empire's downfall. One of the most shocking revelations lies in the sheer number of external invasions faced by the Roman Empire. The 5th century brought aggressive encroachment from various groups such as the Visigoths, Vandals, and Huns. Each incursion eroded the boundaries of Roman territory and resulted in the loss of cities and military posts. The famous sack of Rome in 410 AD by the Visigoths sent shockwaves throughout the empire. The Romans, who had once believed themselves immune to such barbaric incursions, faced a nightmare. The very symbol of their dominance was in ruins. What you might not expect is that this event marked a psychological blow more significant than any military defeat. It signaled the slow, deliberate erosion of the empire's identity. In tracing the fall of the Roman Empire, a pivotal moment occurs in 476 AD when the last Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the Germanic king Odoacer. The image of a mere boy being dethroned by a foreign leader symbolizes an empire that has lost its grip. From this moment, you might wonder if it was a singular failure or the culmination of centuries of missteps and misunderstandings. However, as we navigate through these events, it's essential to consider the wider view as well. The dissolution of the Western Roman Empire isn't merely an isolated occurrence, rather, it fathoms the metamorphosis that leads to the rise of new powers and the birth of Europe's medieval landscape. The Balkan regions, North Africa, and the territories of Gaul transformed profoundly, a canvas upon which new societies would script their own narratives. Now, I must pause at this juncture in our narrative. The pathways to Rome's decline illustrate the intricate dance between civilizations and the delicate balance of power. we've uncovered just a portion of the vast tapestry that explains how one of history's greatest empires experienced an incredible fall. In the next segment, we'll delve deeper. Stay tuned as we explore the aftermath of Rome's demise, the shifting cultures and emerging kingdoms, and reveal how the legacy of this once great empire shaped the world we know today. With each layer peeled away, you'll discover the lessons that resonate even in our modern civilization, intriguing revelations that might just change your perspective on the passage of history. Are you ready? The journey continues. As we embark on this second segment of our exploration into the aftermath of the Roman Empire's fall, we must consider the profound upheaval it triggered throughout Europe and beyond. The vacuum left by the decaying imperial structure paved the way for new powers to rise, each echoing the remnants of Roman governance, culture, and society in unique ways. The collapse of centralized authority in the West led to the fragmenting of territories into smaller kingdoms, ruled by local chieftains and nobles. The once unified governance of the vast Roman Empire devolved into a patchwork of competing realms, each vying for control and influence in a world that had become increasingly perilous. Among the most prominent of these emerging powers were the Franks, led by figures like Clovis I, who would unify many of the Gallic tribes under a Christian banner, signaling a shift in allegiance toward both regional and new divine authority. Imagine standing in post-Roman Europe, where the echoes of ancient Roman power reverberate through the ruins of cities now reclaimed by nature and new urban communities springing forth from these remnants. In many ways, this transformation was not merely a repudiation of the past, but rather a complex syncretism where Roman legacies were both absorbed and reinterpreted within the evolving frameworks of medieval society. Each kingdom shaped by the collapse found ways to appropriate Roman governance structures, legal frameworks, and even architecture, establishing continuity with a legacy that was both revered and feared. Significantly, the disintegration of the Western Roman Empire bore crucial implications for the spread of Christianity. The Church, which founded its authority in part on the civil governance of Rome, stepped in to fill the power vacuum left in the wake of the empire's decline. As bishops gained influence and authority, they often acted as mediators between competing tribes and established a new framework of communal identity centered around faith. This adaptation facilitated the establishment of Christendom, a cultural amalgamation that bound newly emerging kingdoms together under the shared banner of Christianity. While Christianity began to unify, it also transformed previously held Roman beliefs and customs. Pagan traditions were reinterpreted through the lens of the new faith, often leading to the creation of local practices that blended both ancient and contemporary beliefs. This cultural melding created the foundation for various medieval traditions, festivals, and social practices that would characterize European civilization for centuries to come. The rise of feudalism during the 9th century also reflects how societies adapted to the fragmented landscape. With the absence of a robust centralized authority, the vassal system emerged, allowing local lords to wield power over lands in exchange for military service and loyalty. This feudal structure would echo many elements of the Roman hierarchy, demonstrating that even in the face of total disintegration, the influence of Rome persisted through its organizational principles. However, the world continued to change. The invasions that had plagued the Roman Empire also reshaped the newly emerging kingdoms. The Scandinavian Vikings and the Magyars from the east, alongside the Saracen raids, contributed to a climate of conflict and uncertainty. Unlike Rome's organized legionary response to external threats, these waves of incursions forced local powers to adopt new tactics for defense and strategies for alliances. Imagine the adrenaline coursing through the veins of a medieval noble as they rallied their men to repel a Viking raid. This was a visceral counterpart to the structured military campaigns of Rome. The environment bred leaders who were both warriors and tacticians, navigating conditions that the Romans could scarcely have anticipated. The brutality and unpredictability of these incursions necessitated a shift in military strategy, while simultaneously promoting a sense of localized identity and community as lords and vassals banded together to ensure their survival. As time marched on and the dust of the empire settled, the foundations of the Middle Ages began to solidify, setting the stage for remarkable developments in Europe. The remnants of Roman infrastructure, such as roads and aqueducts, provided essential networks that facilitated trade, communication, and the spread of culture and ideas. Even as the centralized political entity of Rome faded, the echoes of its engineering prowess continued to support the revitalization of European commerce, creating interconnected markets that spurred economic growth. Yet, as the new medieval society spun forth from the ashes of Rome, it grappled with its identity just as much as its legacy. Renaissance thinkers, operating centuries later, would draw upon the classical texts of Rome, shedding new light on philosophy, political theory, and art. The revival of interest in ancient wisdom sparked the intellectual renaissance that would eventually lead to the upheaval of the very structures built upon the ruins of Rome. What may surprise you is how the fall of the Roman Empire laid the groundwork for the eventual ascendancy of the Holy Roman Empire in the medieval landscape, with figures like Charlemagne taking center stage. Crowned emperor by Pope Leo III in 800 AD, Charlemagne symbolized an attempt to revive the glory of Rome, weaving together the threads of old Roman authority with the new Christian ideals that had taken root throughout Europe. While it wouldn't be a direct continuation of the Roman legacy, it marked the reassertion of imperial aspirations within a decidedly Christian context. Moreover, in terms of governance, the concept of divine right eventually emerged, a notion that intertwined the ideals of rulership with the authority of the Church. These new leaders espoused loyalty to a different paradigm, one that replaced the Senate's allure with the divine influence of God. In a way, this development can be viewed as a reflection of the empire's failures and successes, translating ancient concepts of governance into new frameworks that also promised stability, prosperity, and legitimacy. Now, let's shift our focus to the cultural and intellectual legacy bequeathed to Europe through the fall of Rome. The dissolution of authority and the movement of people across regions triggered an exchange of ideas that illuminated new paths of understanding. As monastic communities developed, they became centers for learning and preservation of knowledge, particularly in the wake of the Dark Ages when much of the Roman legislative and cultural wealth faced the threat of obscurity. These monasteries hoarded ancient manuscripts, copying and preserving important texts that would later resurface during the Renaissance. The works of scholars like Plato and Aristotle served as bedrock for the intellectual revival, ultimately guiding Europe toward a renewed appreciation of rational thought and inquiry. You may be astounded to learn that the very manuscripts that enriched the Renaissance merely existed due to the diligence of those who safeguarded them during the chaotic times following Rome's collapse. In coupling religion and scholarship, these early medieval institutions laid the groundwork for universities that dotted the landscape of Europe in the 12th and 13th centuries. The teachings that took root, often blending Christian doctrine with classical works, shaped educational paradigms and philosophical discourse, ultimately fostering a period rich in creativity, critique, and the examination of human experience. Furthermore, the decline of Rome had profound effects on the geographic and cultural understanding of Europe. The Middle Ages bore witness to a new era of exploration and colonization, as regional powers sought to extend their territory and influence. Inspired by an increasingly interconnected world, European leaders looked beyond their borders, spurred by a sense of opportunity that emerged from the ashes of the Roman Empire, a dynamic previously absent within the enforced borders of Roman dominion. Finally, as we contemplate the concluding steps of our narrative journey, we must reflect on how Rome's decline shaped not just the borders and powers of the medieval era, but the very fabric of modern governance, law, and culture. The legacy of Roman law continues to influence contemporary legal systems. These foundational concepts of citizenship, rights, and civic duty persist as cornerstones of modern democracies. The echoes of those ancient Roman ideals resonate through the chambers of today's parliaments, influencing discussions on governance and justice. In closing, the fall of the Roman Empire is not merely a tale of decline. It is a testament to resilience, reinvention, and the indomitable human spirit that embraces change. Through centuries of upheaval and transformation, the remnants of Rome molded a new world shaped by both its glory and its failures. It demonstrates how civilizations adapt, innovate, and ultimately intertwine with the threads of history, reminding us that the past contains invaluable lessons that resonate today, infusing our modern experience with echoes of antiquity. As we reflect on this extraordinary tapestry, we understand that we are all defined in part by our histories, and the legacy of Rome continues to illuminate the complexities of our world. The remnants of its grand architecture, the echoes of its revolutions, and the wisdom of its thinkers invite us to ponder our place within the continuum of history. Much like Rome itself, our society navigates its own challenges, striving to learn from the past in the quest to craft a more just future. Thank you for joining this exploration into one of history's most significant transformations. Your journey through the echoes of the Roman Empire isn't just a reflection of ancient life, it's a call to introspect about the legacy we carry forward. The story doesn't end here, it inspires us to shape our narrative for the centuries to come.